Good morning, everyone, and happy week 3. Welcome into Wake and Take as we're going to break down the top starts and sits by position, as well as giving you 3 players that you should be throwing into your flex spot this week. It's going to be a fun one. We've been doing well with these so far this season, so go ahead and buckle up, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so again, welcome back, everyone, and I hope that you got some good points on Thursday night, maybe heading into this matchup really well, or, you're just going to have a good Sunday, got some good players to help in your lineup and all that stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to throw those into the live chat. This is a pre-recorded video, but I will be there to answer your questions if you have any. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and recap how we did last week. We saw some success, in fact, lots of success last week. I told you to sit Trevor Lawrence, start Tony Pollard, sit Aaron Jones, start Rashid Shaheed, sit DJ Moore. I even told you to start Mike Gesicki and sit Isaiah Likely. And of course, an easy one, we had flex Jordan Mason. Some of our misses, though, we were supposed to start Matthew Stafford last week, but I think the Cooper Kupp injury kind of ruined that. And then I told you guys to flex Brandon Cooks. Didn't really happen. Jalen Tolbert ended up being the play. And then Tyler Boyd, I had you guys flex, but really, I think I have too much faith in this Tennessee offense right now. They just are not getting it done. They're just not getting it done. So anyway, pretty decent week, really, I got to say. And I think that we're going to keep things rolling this week. So again, buckle up. Here we go. We'll start at the quarterback position. Jared Goff is a must start this week. This matchup against the Arizona Cardinals has the highest point total on the slate. Vegas is expecting over 50 points to be scored. And the Cardinals defense, while last week we told you to start Matthew Stafford against this defense, he ended up not being that great. He still did throw for over 200 pass yards without any interceptions, right? And then week 1, Josh Allen, same thing, over 200 pass yards, but actually got touchdowns, had 2 touchdowns. And again, no interceptions as well. So this Cardinals defense has been picked apart. Should be a little bit of a shootout here. And Jared Goff really has been playing really well. Jamison Williams has been on fire. Amon-Ra St. Brown finally showed some life last week. And I'm sure that Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs will be truly unlocked at some point as well. So I'm firing up basically every Lion this week in this matchup. But it starts with the quarterback. Get Jared Goff into your lineup. And we will be sitting Justin Herbert. Now, of course, this could develop where he isn't playing. So again, this is recorded on Saturday, but currently Justin Herbert is questionable to play. And what I understand from Justin Herbert throughout his career is he plays through injuries. This is a high ankle sprain. So normally you would expect someone to sit, but I think that we would have at least heard a doubtful or something if he really wasn't going to play. So Justin Herbert, I really think is going to try to play through this injury against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which could be a terrible decision. So hopefully he doesn't, right? Like hopefully he doesn't, and this is just a moot point anyway. But I did just want to say, if he does end up playing and you have Justin Herbert on your lineup, even in Superflex, probably sit this player. Try to find some points elsewhere. As this is the lowest point total on the slate, this Chargers-Steelers game, only expecting 35.5 points. Herbert's already been underwhelming. I mean, even last week with 2 touchdowns, he only had 130 pass yards, also threw an interception and only scored 12 points. He has 22 points so far this season. And the Steelers are pretty stout on defense. They've got TJ Watt, of course. They've got Joey Porter now showing some great plays. And they haven't even allowed 200 yards in the air yet. Kirk Cousins threw 155, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Justin Fields, 117 and 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So either way, even if Justin Herbert was healthy, this was probably going to be the right decision to sit him. So also take into account he's hurt playing through a high ankle sprain. If he is out there today, just sit him. Find some points elsewhere. There's no point to do it. But hopefully he just doesn't even play, and this is just totally moot. Moving to running back, we are starting DeAndre Swift. I know it's been an awful start to the season so far, but he's at least getting basically all the opportunity in the backfield in Chicago right now. He's got a really easy matchup against the Indianapolis Colts, and I really think that the Chicago Bears could finally show some life this week. I don't think that they're going to be this bad forever. I think they'll figure it out, and this Colts defense is a great spot for them to figure it out. And if they figure it out, DeAndre Swift should be the biggest benefactor, not only catching passes out of the backfield, but also as a runner. And in this game in particular, the Colts just lost to Forrest Buckner. for the entire season. They put him on IR, and they've already been allowing 2 back-to-back 100-yard rushers against them. Jonathan Taylor had over 100 rush yards. Joe Mixon had over 100 rush yards. And in this, so far, they are actually averaging an average of 237 rush yards a game, this Indianapolis Colts defense, because of Anthony Richardson and how good Joe Mixon was as well. Had over 150 for him. So it's an easy matchup. DeAndre Swift's been getting the volume. I think the Bears can bounce back this week. Look for DeAndre Swift to score a good amount of points this week. Throw him in your lineup. We'll be sitting Rachaad White, and this one's a little counterintuitive. He has an easy matchup against the Broncos. They have been giving up pretty good performances to, of course, Kenneth Walker and Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren were fine. Justin Fields was fine. You know, like this Broncos defense isn't that great, but also not that bad, right? Like they have been totally fine. But because they're just fine, right? And this Buccaneers team has been looking really good. I just don't think they're going to have to lean on Rachaad White a lot in this game, even as a pass catcher, because we saw last week he picked up a groin injury, was barely utilized. He only had 1 target, 1 reception off of his 10 carries, and that 1 reception only had 23 total yards, 3 points against the Lions. It was supposed to be a good game script for him. This one should be another one where, especially now playing through this groin injury, he's probably not going to be that utilized. And he's already been inefficient, only averaging 2 yards a carry so far this season. I think this will be the Bucky Irving week in Tampa, if anything. I think that him being less than 100% and the Buccaneers probably pretty easily being able to run away with this one, I think it'll be Bucky Irving leaned on, and they can try to have Rachaad White heal up a bit so he can come back next week and be a full pass catcher, because he's not really going to be needed as much this week. And, you know, just an anecdote, maybe not actually great analysis here, but we just saw Braylon Allen kind of have a big week on Thursday Night Football. We know Carson Steele is probably on the way later on Sunday as well. This might just be a backup running back week. So why not Bucky Irving as well behind the injured Rachaad White against a soft Broncos team? I think that Bucky Irving may be leaned on more, which makes Rachaad White a sit. Now let's move to the wide receiver position, and we'll get cute with it. We'll go Brian Thomas Jr. Now I know that this, me saying that let's get cute is maybe a poor way to phrase this, as Brian Thomas has had double-digit points in back-to-back weeks. Just had 94 yards against the Browns and 47 yards and a touchdown against the Dolphins in week 1. This week against the Bills, I'm going to go right back to him, right? I think you have to. Even if he only gets 4 targets, it seems he can be prolific with them. And this should be a shootout against the Bills, or at the very least, the Jaguars should be playing from behind, which should lead to some good volume for Brian Thomas Jr. I'm going to go ahead and call it now. This is the week we see 100 yards and a touchdown. Last week we saw 90. Week 1 we saw a touchdown. This week he does both. He gets over 90-something yards, at least 100 probably, and a touchdown. Get Brian Thomas Jr. into your lineup. Start him up this week against the Buffalo Bills. And we will be sitting Michael Pittman. I just don't trust him right now with Anthony Richardson. Things have not been good. And the Bears, this is a tough matchup. It is a tough matchup. The Bears defense is awesome. Jalen Johnson's really good. And I know Nico Collins just had 135 yards against them, but no other receiver has had more than 50. Diggs only had 37. Tank Dell had -3 against them, right? The Titans, Calvin Ridley had exactly 50, but Boyd only had 18. Chig only had 15. Like, this has been a very, very stout pass defense, and Michael Pittman has already not been looking good with Michael Pittman. He's had 15 targets, but has only been able to bring in 7 of them for 52 yards, and he has bottom of the barrel opportunity metrics. He's 49th in air yard share, 38th in air ADOT, 49th in deep targets, 40th in red zone targets, 63rd in target quality, 58th in catchable target rate. I mean, his utilization and his opportunity just is not good in this offense, and it's already a tough matchup. His connection with Anthony Richardson is just not there yet. You've got to sit Michael Pittman for the time being, especially in this tough matchup against the Chicago Bears. And moving on to tight end, I'm going to go ahead and call it here on Wake and Take. This is the Mark Andrews get right week. This is the week you need to fire up Mark Andrews. And this is probably going to be the only week that I could even put this into a sit show, right? Like, normally, Mark Andrews is an auto start no matter what. The people are turned off by him right now, but I just don't think they should be. I know week 1 was a disappointment, but last week he had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 51 yards. That is not bad. He had a tight end 10 finish last week. I think this week against the Dallas Cowboys should be a really fun matchup for fantasy. Has the third highest point total on the board. Mark Andrews is trending all in the right direction right now. I think that especially since the Saints just embarrassed this defense as well, this screams a Mark Andrews week. Mark Andrews get right week. Start him if you have him. You can't sit Mark Andrews anymore. The Mandrews is back, and it starts this week. And at tight end, we'll take sitting Jake Ferguson in this same game. Right? Like you just can't do it. You just can't do it. I know that he is cleared to play, but I just am very, very hesitant to start really any player on the comeback of injury, right? Like anytime you're coming back from injury, it's going to be tough. And the Ravens are pretty good against tight ends as well. So it's a tough matchup. He's less than 100%. I think the Cowboys will try to get it done in the run game. Or just with CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Ryan Flournoy maybe, but he's probably going to be healthy scratch again. But I'm just not comfortable starting Jake Ferguson in his first week back from injury. Go ahead and sit him this week if you have him. Find some tight end production elsewhere. His ceiling is not very high this week, and honestly, neither is his floor. Not really trusting Jake Ferguson in this game. So those are our top starts and sits by position. As mentioned at the top of the show, and as we've been doing this season, we've got 3 flex plays for you. First one, Chuba Hubbard against the Raiders. I think that's going to be a very fun matchup to watch with Andy Dalton at the helm for the Carolina Panthers. We saw him throw the ball 58 times when he started last season, week 3 against the Seattle Seahawks. And in that game, Chuba Hubbard was still kind of playing second fiddle to Miles Sanders, so he only had a 33% snap share. But Miles Sanders in that game had a rushing touchdown and also had 5 receptions for 38 yards. So that is awesome for PPR leagues. Hopefully that trend continues. Andy Dalton continues to dump it off to Chuba Hubbard. Last week, we saw Chuba Hubbard actually do well. It was a disappointing week 1, only 6 carries, 0 receptions for 14 yards. But in week 2, he had 10 carries and 4 receptions for 76 yards. Look for that usage to be there again in week 3. It's a fun matchup against the Raiders. I'm starting up Chuba Hubbard with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Put him in your flex this week. Cam Akers versus the Vikings. This is a tough matchup, but everything right now, as of recording this, is trending towards Cam Akers being the only running back in Houston. He looked damn good in the preseason, so I think that some of that explosiveness should be there, and so should the opportunity. And I think also against the Vikings that obviously Brian Flores, this is a tough defense. He's been doing a really, really good job. My assumption would be if I'm Brian Flores, I'm scheming this defense against the pass. I'm trying to stop CJ Stroud. I will let Cam Akers beat me. So I think that this could be a little bit more of a stop CJ Stroud, allow Cam Akers to run free type of game. So I want Cam Akers to start this week if I have him. Put him in your flex spot. Let's go Cam Achilles Akers. Never give it up on him. I couldn't do it. And now it's cool to finally get a start out of him, hopefully. And lastly, this one going a little bit deeper, and we'll see how it ends up turning it out. But Greg Dortch the Torch versus the Lions. I know week 1, he had 8 targets and 6 receptions for 47 yards. It was awesome. But then in week 2, his snap share went way down, only had 2 targets and 2 receptions. But I like this matchup against the Lions. Again, this is the highest point total on the board, expecting over 50 points. And we've actually seen slot receivers kind of eat this Lions secondary apart. Right, Cooper Kupp had 110 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Johnson had 79 yards. And just last week, Chris Godwin had 7 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. And the perimeter wide receiver, Mike Evans, kind of struggled with only 42 yards. So I think that the Cardinals could look into the slot again, especially since they just saw Chris Godwin eat them alive. And that would benefit Greg Dortch. This should be a shootout. I mean, you might as well start really anyone you have in this game. But Greg Dortch, the Torch, throw him in your flex this week. And that should do it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you all the best on your week 3 matchups. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Player Profiler. And make sure you tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern as we'll be back with Wake and Take for some reactions to the weeks happening. You all have a super Sunday and best of luck on all your matchups. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.